Mandalas. They are very, very effective for symmetrical designs, and they look pretty too. So how do you create them? Well, in Inkscape, it's easier than you think. Hello my friends, welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Rob from Button Press Graphics, and today I'm going to be showing you a method of how to create a mandala, or just a really pretty symmetrical pattern. So without further ado, let's get started and I'll show you how to do it. Now, as you can see on screen, this was just a random design that I came up with using one shape. Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it? I used one shape for this entire design in conjunction with two different path effects. The path effects in question are mirror symmetry and rotate copies. So clicking on this shape just to select it, I can show you, because I haven't finalized it yet, that if I come to my path effects menu, you've got mirror, symmetry and rotate copies. I have got 16 copies of the initial shape that I started with, which was a triangle. And using the edit paths by nodes, you can then have these nodes here and you can move them around to get a really cool design. You can just play around with it like I am right now, and it starts to look really trippy, doesn't it? So the first thing that you need to do, so we can all make sure that we're working with the same ratios, go to File, scroll down to Document Properties. Now these are the document properties that I am currently working with. If you want to copy along exactly, then these are the settings you're going to need. When you're all set, you can click out of that. Now, to begin with, what I want you to do is we need to get some guidelines up so we can make sure that we are always going to be symmetrical. Now, there are many different ways you can do this, but I'm going to show you a very simple way that will just take two different steps. First off, we are going to get a circle. So go to your ellipsis tool on the left hand toolbar and hold Shift and Control while you draw a circle, and this will lock the proportions to make it completely symmetrical in size. Once you have your circle, I need you to open up all the menus you're going to need. Now for this project, what you're going to need is your layers menu, which is this one right here. You will need your align and distribute menu, which is right here, and you'll need your fill and stroke menu, which is right here. Finally, you will also need your path effects menu, of course. So go to path, scroll all the way down to where it says path effects ... and give that one a click. When you have all these menus open, they will appear here, and then you can begin. Now for this circle, the reason we need the align and distribute with it selected, we can go to the align and distribute menu. From the drop down, you just scroll down to where it says page and select that. What this basically means, and there will be a tutorial coming up in the very near future about the align and distribute menu, I am going to just select page, so the shape that you are trying to align will align with the page and not with any other objects. With page selected, I am going to center it up on the vertical and horizontal axes. So we click them two center icons there, and that will make sure that this circle is dead center for your canvas. Now with that done, we are going to use two guidelines. Now the best way of doing this is by making sure that you have snapping turned on. Now there are certain snapping modes that you will need. So when you come up to the top right corner, this is your snapping button. If you click the arrow, you will get all the checkboxes of what you want the computer to snap onto. These are the ones that I have got enabled, so if you want to pause the video, feel free to do so, and then you can match yours exactly. Once you have that set up, you can close out of that, make sure snapping is turned on, and then you will see the rulers on the top and the left here. Now, in order to get the guidelines up, use your select tool and then go to the top, click and drag down, and you will get this line. Now, because you've got snapping turned on, as you come down, it will snap onto the top, the sides, the center, and the bottom. What we want is for the line to go right through the center. So I'm going to snap it to the right hand side of the circle, and then I'm going to repeat this process but do it from the left hand side toolbar instead. And then snap that onto the bottom, and now we have a perfectly central guide. Now, for the most part, what we're going to be working with is this top left section. We just need to create some random lines. So we come to the pen tool, and then going from the center line, we are going to draw some lines. Now, when you get to this point, you can either hit enter like so, or once you have got your first point, right click, and that will also end it just like this. Now, how many lines you want to have is completely up to you, but these lines are going to signify the amount of layers that you have. So I'm going to go with 7, lucky 7. Now, with all of these drawn, all we have to do is go to our select tool, and then I want you to click off everything so nothing is selected. Now, a little hint: if you want to select a group of objects but you don't want to hold shift and do this, there is a quicker way of doing it. All you have to do is press the left Alt key, hold it down, and then as you click and drag, a red line will appear. Everything that this red line touches when you let go will be selected. Now, with all these selected, we can literally go to group, which is this button up at the top. Now we have our group of lines, we need to use the path effects. So going to your path effect menu, click that, and what you will see is G44 for me. It might be a different number for you, but it will always start with the letter G, and that is to signify that what you have selected is a group of objects. With that selected, we are going to click the arrow that's pointing downwards, and this will bring up all our path effects. Now, if you watched last week's video, you will be familiar with this menu, but for this one, we are going to be using the Generate tab, which is this section right here. First off, we are going to use mirror symmetry. And when I click this, I want you to pay particular notice to the group we just created. As you can see, it has now repeated everything and done it in exactly the same, but only reversed. This is going to be the basis for our mandala. I know it doesn't look like much right now, but one option you do need to use on this mirror symmetry live path effect is to fuse the paths together. Once you have them fused, this is going to make all this path join with this path here. So these two sets of groups have now become one group. Now, before we go object to path to finalize this, we need to add another path effect. So the same as what I was explaining in last week's video, you can use multiple path effects on the same group of objects or the same object, stroke, etc. So we're going to go back to the arrow at the top, and we're going to go down to rotate copies, this one right here. And you will get something that looks a little bit like this. A jumble of lines, you may think. Well, not really. in the options for this path effect, what I want you to do is select your number of copies. The more copies you have, the more intricate the design is going to be. But one thing I do suggest you do is keep it at an even number. So 6, 8, 10, 12, so on and so forth. For this, I'm just going to round it up to an even 10. Like so. Now, this is where the magic starts to happen. By going to your left toolbar and selecting your nodes tool, you will see that a little node has appeared right in the center here. What we're wanting to do is click and drag that to the center of the page, like so. And then you get something that looks like this, where everything is now going away from the center circle. And that is exactly what we want. So now you're at this stage, here is a brief explanation of what to do. When it comes to moving these lines, as you can see, as I briefly go over, you see it highlight blue. But if I go to any of the other lines, any of the copies, no highlight will happen. But it will happen on this one, this, and so on. So all the lines that we created to begin with are the ones that you can manipulate, and all of the copies will follow suit. So for example, if I select this bottom line here by clicking on it, you will get the two nodes. Now these are the two nodes of each end of the line. When I click this one and I bring it in, as you can see, it instantly snaps straight on to the circle. That is exactly what we want. And then we can use the other end and we can position it wherever we want. Now, one little tip that I want to give you, when you are doing all of the editing, when it comes to these two nodes and the line in between, try and get the points to be here. So try and avoid all of the nodes that are on this central line from going to the circle. Because if that happens, when it comes to trying to join these two up, they will not join together. Because what you are trying to do, if I zoom right in, you are trying to draw the actual line that the copies are made from with one of the copies. So you can zoom in a lot and you can try and get it to look perfect, but yeah, as you can see, it's not going to work. However, if you use this one and bring it in and then use the middle one to come out, it will always snap to where you need it to go. And now, as an extra little tip, when it comes to using the node tool, if you select the line, as you can see next to the cursor, the little arrow icon that comes up pointing in all four directions, that is signifying that if you click and you drag, you can bend the straight lines in any way you want. And that will also make these handles appear for each of the nodes too. Now, using these nodes and these handles, you can then manipulate any of them in the way that you want. And then when you repeat the same process, because you're using this highlighted line here, you can then bring this one down and it will always snap on, just like that. You see how that works? So if you want things to snap on and not to have to tweak it at all, you can just use this method in order to build up bit by bit. So what I will do now is I will just quickly go through the rest of the lines and I will catch up with you when I'm finished. And as I zoom out, as you can see, the effect that I have made in very little time indeed is really cool. But you can go further to this. And if you do want to go extra to this method, you need to be aware of the fact that this is going to be very intensive on your PC. So it's just something to keep in mind. At this point, I would suggest saving your work just in case it does become a little bit too buggy or too laggy. Now this next method is very simple to do. If you go to your layers menu, you will see layer 1, and if you click the little arrow next to it, you will see that your group is here. And within this group, you have all of the original lines that you created. What we want to do is add to this group, because that is the group that is getting rotated and copied. So we click on that group and then right click, and if you scroll down, it will say enter group #G and then whatever number your computer has set. In my case, it is enter group #G44. So we're going to click on that. And now we have entered the group, and it doesn't look like much has happened, but anything that we now add to this group will be rotated and mirrored in exactly the same way as the original lines. So for example, if we wanted to add some circles to this design and make it look a little bit more fleshed out and professional, we can use the ellipsis tool, and just by going, say, right here, I can click and drag, and there we go. As you can see, it has now repeated all of them circles, perfectly symmetrical in every single one of these shapes. One thing you do need to be aware of, say if I was to take the fill color away by going to the fill color at the bottom left and clicking the X. Now when I create one, if I was to create one in the dead center of this little arrow sort of shape here, did you see it? As you can see, it's now created two in exactly the same place. So they have overlapped. That might not be what you want, and sometimes it can be very good to have that. But you can also do something like this and have them next to each other instead. Now there is one other way you can add to this. You can add using the pen tool, the pencil, even the calligraphy tool if you wanted. In fact, no matter what you add, it will be repeated. So say I wanted to come to my pencil tool. Now we use this, we can come to areas like here. And remember I said only on the left side everything will be mirrored onto the right. So if I come here and I just draw some random lines like this, as you can see it is repeated, and if I zoom out, it is all repeated everywhere. You can even have all of them coming from the same point. And then if I click here, like so, we are now building up the method that we use. Now when it comes to all of these shapes, as you can see, there might be a few issues for you, including these little jagged lines. Well, there is a way around that as well. If we was to come to the group that we are adding to, we can select the top path and then hold Shift and select the bottom, and this will highlight all of them. Now with them all selected, we can go to our fill and stroke menu, go to the stroke style tab, and then these little joins and caps, If we click round the join and round the cap, as you can see, they've already disappeared. And if I zoom right in, there is no jagged lines anymore, including the edges and the points where everything has met together. And that is pretty much it, my friends. If you have any problems following this tutorial, do not hesitate to drop me a comment in the comment section down below. I read and reply to every single comment that I receive. And of course, I would love to see your attempts at a mandala. I would be very eager to share it on this channel as well if you're interested in being featured in a future Creative Corner section of one of my videos. For example, what you can see on screen right now is an animated wallpaper that I personally created. If this is something that would interest you, then I can by all means give you a tutorial for that as well, as most of it is using Inkscape, but it is completely free to make. So if you are interested, let me know. And did you know I have a weekly blog over on my website? Go and check it out if you haven't already. Just visit buttonpressgraphics.com. Until next time, I'm going to bid you all a fond farewell, say thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.